Hello and welcome. You're watching BTS that's behind the scenes on Business Today TV. I'm Sakshi Patra, and this is a show where we share with all our viewers a sneak peek into the latest Business Today magazine. And joining in on the show with me are Alokesh Bhattacharyya, Managing Editor, Business Today magazine. Also joining in is Senior Correspondent Bhavya Kaushal with me. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for taking the time out for this discussion. And first up, to just show a glimpse to all our viewers of the latest edition of the Business Today magazine. Well, I have my copy here, and this is a special edition. It's on India's best B schools. It's one of the most awaited ones, especially for all the aspiring MBA students across India. So that's something that everybody watches out for. So, Alokesh, let me kickstart this discussion with you first. Help me understand more on the annual ranking of India's top B schools. And this time around, do we have any new entrants and which are the schools right at the top?
Right. Thank you, Sakshi. Basically, this year we have done something different, right? So when you ask who are the top, you'll have to ask me four times because we have four different rankings, right? So what we've done is basically what we've noticed is, and I mean you've also noticed, basically in the management education space, there's a lot of different kinds of courses that are now coming, right? So the 2 year MBA used to be the only course for management students earlier, but now there are lots of others. Now there are companies like Upgrad who are offering MBA courses in partnership with some global B schools. There are the 1 year courses which are basically anything between 12 to 15 months or slightly longer, which a lot of people are preferring. There are executive education courses which are shorter, maybe 6 months, 9 months. Yeah, there are online courses and all that. So what we've done this time is we have done four rankings, right? So one is the premier one, which is the conventional 2 year MBA ranking, in which the top five are exactly the same as last year. So I am Calcutta is number one, followed by I am Ahmedabad, then Bangalore, Lucknow, and SPJIMR, right? And in addition to this, we have three other rankings. So one is the 1 year ranking. Now, in the 1 year ranking, we are basically looking at 12 to 15 months kind of spread. So over there, the topper is ISP, the Indian School of Business of Hyderabad, and then I am Ahmedabad is number two, Bangalore, Calcutta, and I am Kozhikode is at number five. Okay, then we did a survey, basically a study to try and understand what are the best executive education courses, right? So those courses might be shorter. It's not necessarily a 1 year MBA course, but shorter, accelerated kind of programs for executives, right? So over there also, more or less, the ranking is very familiar. Names are there. So I am Ahmedabad is number one, Bangalore is number two. Then there's ISB Hyderabad. I am Calcutta. I am Lucknow, and we also have a ranking of edtech companies who are offering
Okay,
management courses. So in the edtech
right.
company ranking, you have Upgrad at number one, and then you have Coursera, New Learn, Great Learning, and edX.
Okay, that's very, very exciting. Not one, but four rankings for different kinds of courses being offered now. Of course, there is this evolving way, the changing landscape of the management education that has taken place, especially amid the last 3, 4 years of amid the COVID-19 pandemic. So, I want to now understand from you, going forward from here, how is this space likely to evolve? What are the key opportunities and challenges ahead for the top B schools of India, who've traditionally led the management institutions and the management courses for a long time now? How should they perceive and reimagine themselves going forward now?
It's a very good question. There are quite a few things that are happening in the management area, and if you'll notice that in India, unlike in Ivy League colleges or global colleges, right? In India, the MBA is something that you do after your graduation, so it's looked upon more as a finishing school, right? So not necessarily a specialized, very high tech kind of management course in that sense, but a more a general kind of management course where you might specialize in some major, but okay, you're still basically doing the basics, right? And so that is also where in the Indian top B schools face the challenge of meeting up to global standards. There's a very strong story in our issue which talks about why Indian B schools don't rank in the top in global rankings, right? While we all crow a lot about how great our management schools are, which they are, and the fact that there are so many global executives of Indian origin who are leading major corporations worldwide, the fact is that none of those global executives has actually done the management course from any IIM in India. Most of them have done their MBA overseas, right, from Stanford or Wharton or Harvard, the INSEAD and those, the usual big league, Ivy League kind of colleges. So where lies the difference, and why is it that Indian schools are not able to match up to them? So our schools have a different point of view. They say that you cannot compare because there are a lot of things in the global rankings that are taken into account and given a lot of weightage which don't matter much in India. Like for example, global schools give a very high weightage to diversity in the classroom in terms of the different countries from which students are there. Now, in India, you don't have that, right? Not too many people from different countries would come to study MBA in IIM Ahmedabad, right? Whereas if you are looking at somewhere in Europe, if there's a B school in France, anybody can hop over from Germany or from, other countries because it's a very small and united kind of place there in Europe. It's much easier for them to have that diversity, and that pegs us back. At the same time, our directors also feel that our students are better than the ones over there. So if we are going to take foreign students, they have to be as good as our students. So there's a lot of, to and fro over there. But still, the fact remains that the top CEOs of Indian origin who are there in the global corporations, apart from one or two like Ajay Banga, who has done his MBA from
Yeah.
Ahmedabad, most other ones who are there, we have looked at 29 of them. You can see their names in our issue. Nobody has done an
Hmm.
MBA from India, right? So obviously, we have a lot to celebrate, but we do have a lot of ground to cover as well.
Absolutely. Those are very, very pertinent points, and I'm sure a lot of food for thought for all those aspiring MBA students out there as well. We just had a marquee event celebrating the top B schools and HR summit as well in New Delhi. And, of course, a lot of discussions happened around that whether this, top most degree from the topmost business school in India really enough at this point in time, or is this really something that you should aspire for, or are there enough opportunities outside as well which can actually help you get to those top jobs in India. So all of those discussions did happen. A lot of debates also happened on the stage. Alokesh, you were also there, and you actually saw a lot of top deans from these colleges also talk about how things are changing for them at their own respective colleges going forward. We'll come back to that, but Bhavya has also done a very interesting story in the edtech space as well. And she's in fact talked about the online executive education space. So Bhavya, help all our viewers really first understand. Of course, we are talking about these new forms, new courses being introduced, and therefore several rankings in this special issue and the edition this time around. What is exactly so exciting about the online executive education space that youngsters and those aspiring students must know?
So, thank you so much, Sakshi, for this opportunity. And like you were discussing earlier, that the online executive education market is very exciting right now. Although it is still nascent in India, but it is a very exciting time to be in this particular industry. The reason being that earlier we used to believe that if you have done 3 years of graduation plus like a 2 years of masters or 3 years of some other course, then you're done with your education. But that is kind of changing in today's time. In today's time, you have to, the companies are focusing on skill based hiring. So if you are an engineer, that is not enough. But if you are an engineer who has done not a master's and MBA, just a data scientist course, your value is a lot in the market today. And one more observation that we've had in this particular story is that the IT sector is on the forefront of hiring people who have done online executive education course. In fact, the edtech companies that I have spoken to and my colleague Binu Paul has spoken to for this story believe that a maximum demand for courses are today in streams such as leadership, management, product development, data science, and on and so forth. In fact, we spoke to a couple of people, and I want to share one example here. So there's an individual I spoke to who belongs to Bangalore, and she was a software engineer. She gave she actually paused her career because she had to take care of her kids, her family, etc. And then someone suggested her to do like a full stack software development course. And after that, when she came back in the career, in the IT industry, she actually got like a major raise. So that really helped. So today she feels like she's living a very fulfilling life where she's able to take care of her family, have a stable job which pays well, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, we are not saying in this story that the online executive education system is replacing the existing models, but it is affordable, it is flexible, and individuals who have some responsibility, who don't want to quit their jobs, for them this is a very unique proposition and a very good idea to take care of. And it also is for people who want to really learn throughout their lives, right? So this is an amazing
Right.
platform for them.
Absolutely. Everybody has been talking about skilling and upskilling constantly to be ahead of the curve in this day and age, especially when we are seeing a lot of disruption taking place because of technologies like generative AI and chat GPT. One will have to stay ahead of the race by building those skills that cannot be superseded by, these technologies. But the point that you really made is what struck to me as a question, that right now the online executive education space may still be on a nascent stage, like you pointed out, but going forward, do you see this whole evolving space some at some later stage replacing the traditional models of education?
So, Sakshi, the online MBA versus the offline MBA has been a long-standing debate. So people have been
Yes.
thinking that, okay, if I am not able to get into IIMs, can I do an executive education course from an edtech company, and will it help? So, when you ask, will it help? Yes, definitely, it will help, but it will not replace the existing models such as legacy universities and legacy colleges, etc. But yeah, the point, and so we've quoted Mr. Ronnie Screwvala, who's the chairperson of Upgrad in the story, and he puts it very well that ethics provide inclusivity, whereas universities and legacy businesses, they provide exclusivity. So I think that pretty much sums up. Another point that I want to take care is that this is very important, because if you look at all the top universities, whether it's FMS, whether it's IIMs, their selection criteria is extremely strict. So when they choose students to come and study in their colleges, 80 or probably 90 to 95 students get filtered out because of their stringent processes and their criteria. So the question is, where do the rest of the 80, 90, 95% people go, right? So the answer is that they come to edtech, and our research, our story clearly shows that they have benefited. So if you learn
Yeah.
something, if you acquire any skill, you are sure to benefit from it, irrespective of where you
Absolutely.
have done, what you have done. But yeah, it doesn't replace the existing systems in place.
All right, but I believe that perhaps it'll be a system where both the traditional models and the newer forms of education will coexist going forward, because each has its place of its own right here. Alokesh, anything that you'd like to add, and any other stories that you'd like to point out for all our viewers that they are a must read?
Yeah, in fact, what Bhavya said is absolutely correct, and at the same time, we must also realize one thing. There is a column by Namita Thapar, the Shark Tank fame, Namita Thapar. She's written a very, very nice column for us. She studied in a foreign B school, right? And she's done very well for herself, of course. See, one of the things that she points out, and which the other IIM director also corroborate, is that there is very little diversity in even in our schools. I mean, not talking about the countries, but talking about the kind of students who get into the top B schools. Majority of the students who get into top B schools are engineers and male, right? Which is basically a slant that happens because the CAT examination, which is the benchmark for getting people into IIMs and other top institutes, is that examination is very, very quantitative heavy, right? And if it is very quantitative heavy, it has a natural bias for engineers and those who are good in mathematics, right? So that creates a problem in terms of that when you get into a classroom, all you have around you are male engineers. So you don't really learn from each other apart from what you see on the whiteboard or the blackboard and what the teacher is teaching you. One of the big things of B schools is that more than what you learn from the curriculum, you learn from the people around you, right? It is the networks that you build there, the relationships that you build there, the alumni networks that you build once you pass out of there. That is the real value of a B school, more than what the management course actually teaches you. So if Indian B schools have to be good, they have to fix this, right? And there has been a lot of debate, and the top directors of the country's IIMs, including IIM Ahmedabad, and you were there at the event, Sakshi, you would have heard them. Dr. Varun Nagaraj of SP Jain and others, they were speaking about how CAT examination needs to be overhauled for us to get a more wider, range of students at the IIMs and therefore better quality managers, right? You cannot have managers who are only engineers and who's only have a very narrow kind of thinking line, around that. That is a big thing that is around the corner, and hopefully that will soon be addressed. Now, in terms of other stories, there is one very, very interesting story that I would urge all our readers to read, and that is on the PLI. The production linked incentive scheme was is very strong, and it's a good one, and the government has been really pushing it hard. It's a very clever and very interesting scheme, and a lot of companies have applied and all, but it has got off to a very, very slow start, and hopefully will pick up. And the government's logic is also fair, and some analysts also say that when you're trying to build a manufacturing ecosystem, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight because factories take time to be built, right? Supply chains take time to be built. So if you are giving incentives for manufacturing on incremental manufacturing production, right, then that is going to take time. And so in the first 3 years, the progress report, the report card is not very impressive, right? So, for example, the government says that PLI should be able to generate about 6 million jobs over a 7 year period, but in the first 3 years, we have had about 300,000, which is way short of, if you divide that 6 million by seven. But given that the expected pace of growth, this is going to hopefully pick up as we go on. And there is a very deep and in-depth analysis by my colleague Arnab Datta in that story, which definitely readers should read to get an understanding of how the PLI scheme.
Right
And I
there,
must
which will
also tell
excite
you
all
that
our viewers.
our B
Yeah.
school, sorry to interrupt you, but our
No.
B school survey, this is the 24th edition of the Business Today Best B Schools. It is the oldest B school survey in India, and this is our 11th in partnership with MDRA, who have done a phenomenal job over the years. And this year they had a little less time to do the newer survey, but they still turned it around very well. Hopefully, we'll build on this even more going forward.
Absolutely, and which is why perhaps our editor Saurav Majumdar here has mentioned in his editorial column right here that it is a definitive compendium of the best business schools right there. So I'm sure that all the students out there would be excited to read this edition. I would urge all our viewers of Business Today TV to also go out there and grab your copies. They're out on the stands. And until then, many many thanks, Alokesh and Bhavya, for sharing these wonderful insights with all our viewers. I was hoping to catch up more insights from the upcoming editions as well. So do stay tuned on to Business Today TV for a whole lot more coming up for you.